Hey, welcome back to Heart and Soul Homes. I am Monica, and today I just wanted to go over, I thought, you know, in my videos I kind of talk, well, I don't talk enough about zones. I don't say it enough that I'm in Arizona and I'm a zone, I garden in a zone 9, 9B to be exact, but I kind of wanted to give a little bit of information, you know, just in case you're like, well, what the heck does that mean? What do you mean zone what? Why does that matter? Because I didn't really pay much of attention, you know. I just went to the local, you know, Home Depot, Lowe's, or whatever, and bought plants that they had, and you know, I didn't know if it was a perennial or an annual, or if it was a good zone, or you know what the tag said as far as needing what kind of shade or sun and how long, and I didn't know. I just picked it up and went and put it in a pot, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't, you know. So as I've learned these different things, I thought, you know what, I mean, if you guys, especially in this quarantine time, and you're saying, hey, I really do enjoy the gardening and I'm getting into it, you kind of want to know some of this stuff, and it's important because you don't want to waste your money. You know, there's so many different, you know, that's why I kind of went into the fertilizing. You have to mind me, you know, I digress. My mind goes 1,000 miles a minute and I jump from subject to subject, and I'm trying to work on that. But, you know, I would spend all this money on pots, or you know, plants to put in my pots. I would put them in the wrong areas and this and that, and I would completely waste money, and or not put them in the sun, or not give them enough water, or I mean, the list goes on and on. Or I would be planting something that is only one season and thinking, why is it not coming back? And you know, so I just wanted to take a minute, kind of like I did with the fertilizers, and give you guys some information so that you can better understand what you're doing when you're gardening. The fertilizer, I think, was a nice thing because it does make such a big difference. And if you want to go to the extreme that I do, or it's not really an extreme, but you know what I mean, you want to use a really good product like the Espoma or the Proven Winners, that is amazing, and I think you'll have a lot of great success in your garden. But like I said, in that, you could use Miracle-Gro, and at least you're getting, you know, your plants are getting some fertilizing, you know what I'm saying? And then maybe as you grow, you want to, you know, try something, you know, better, or you know, different. So what I've got going on today is talking about your zones and understanding your zones. Basically, you can go on your phone, Google what planting zone am I in, or on the computer, and do the same thing in Google, and many different websites, almanac websites will come up. And what it'll do is ask you to put your zip code where you live, and it will generate what your planting zone is, and that's very simple to do. Understanding zones is the lower the number means the harsher winter. So if you're, you know, zoning, or you're planting in zone, if you're 3 or something, that would mean that you have really harsh winters, and it go, you know, it'll specify out if you go, you know, 5 below 0 or whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever, it gives you exactly all the information that is important to you. Now, I'm in Arizona, so I am again in a zone 9. The higher the zone, the warmer the climate. So in Arizona, we don't, I mean, we have freezing in the winter, but you know what I mean, it's usually something that's a few days. So you could put like a sheet over, you could, you know, help your plants in that time frame, and that's often what we do here. Is we'll do garden covers or that kind of thing, just to help, or bring, if you can, bring in a pot, maybe up on a patio or in a garage or something like that, just to keep it a little bit warmer. But we don't have the harsh winters. You know, we don't have the snow. We don't have the extreme, you know, freezing. We don't have all that. So our plants are going to be designed more for what we need. And so when you see a plant that says it's good, zones 4 through 9 or 3 through 9, that's going to tell you that that plant is extremely hardy. Okay, it can go through a tough winter with freezing temps and whatever below and all that kind of thing, which it will designate on the zone information, up to the warmer climates and going into summer. Because think about, it's not just our winters, it's our summers and our dry heat. That's what the whole purpose of the zones tell you. So those that are, you know, from 3 to 9 or 4 to 9 or 5 to 9, those are going to be really, really hardy plants because they can go to extreme colds and they can go to extreme heats. That's important for you, because knowing what you're working with is an extremely important, you know, for your planting success. So that is very easy to look up to find that information. You can do it on your phone, you can do it on the computer. The other thing, and typically if you think about it, most of your garden centers or your big box stores, they're not going to put out plants that aren't going to grow here. You know, so you're usually pretty safe going. If you're going to order online, you're going to need to know, you know, or seeds, you're going to need to know what your planting zones are. But typically, you know, you go to Home Depot or you go to Lowe's, they're not going to have plants that aren't going to survive here, right? I mean, or a nursery, they're just, or trees. They're not going to have it. They're going to only have what's going to fit in our zone or the zone you're in. So that's a good thing. The other really important thing that I highly, highly stress to you is when you're buying a shrub or a plant or a tree, or just the little containers of flowers, there's always, and if there's not, look for one that has one. There's always a little stake in there that gives you all of the information for that plant. It gives you the zone, it gives you how much light, sun exposure it needs. It will explain if it needs like part sun, which is like part sun, I think runs, and it tells you on the tag, it would be like 6 to 8 hours and then some shade. It would need some shade and some heat, okay? If it says full sun, that means this plant is good for being in full sun. You're good to go. It doesn't have to have any shade. It'll tell you how much water, if this plant, you know, likes to dry out a little bit, or if it needs, you know, a lot of water. It gives you all the pertinent information for that plant. And that is so important because it makes a difference where or how you plant that plant. You know, if you're going to put it out in the landscape and you're going to put it in a shady spot, but it says it needs full sun, it's not going to live. It's not going to do well. Or if it is a shady plant and you put it out in full sun, it's going to fry. At least here, you know. But wherever, you know. So it's really, really important that you look at those tags, you understand, you plan where you're going to put these things, and that it has the proper water. You know, if you're going to put stuff on drip, but it really likes to, you know, like a cacti or a succulent really likes to dry out more or hold its water, don't put it on drip, because or be mindful that that drip is set for only once a week or twice a week or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really important. That information determines where that plant's going to go. It's not just about going to the garden center and picking some pretty colored plants and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to go home and I'm going to plant these up and it's going to be great. You know, those are information that you need to really pay attention to, and you know how it's going to be the most successful for your garden, because obviously you don't want to go and buy plants and then they die and you lose that money, you know, or all the time that it takes to put in a plant. And, you know, now if you want to, you know, there's been some times where, you know, I've done a little more risky stuff. Like I have hydrangeas planted in my gardens. Hydrangeas are a really tough thing to grow here, you know. They're going to take extra water, they're going to take extra fertilizer, they have to be in just the right kind of place, because, you know, if I put them way out in front in the sun, they're going to fry. But yet if I have them just a little, you know what I'm saying, that's probably not for a beginner gardener. That's probably not what you want to do. I'm kind of trying to experiment, kind of trying to play with some different plants to see if I can, you know, get them, you know, going and off to a good start. But as a beginner gardener, I wouldn't do that. I would just, you know, use your plant tags, know your zone, know that you're going to fertilize, come up with a schedule, you know. Like for me, it's every Friday. It's just something that I don't even have to think about. It's just, boom, Friday's here. You know I'm fertilizing. So those are the suggestions that I have for you on that. Okay, so the other thing to know and to note is you may see plants that say these are perennials or these are annuals. I always got so confused with that, because to me, when you say an annual, it should mean that it's something that's going to come back annually, but it's not. So I've just had to like retrain my brain, because I would get so stuck on that's what that meant. But so an annual is something that is only going to grow, like you're only going to have a planting season, one planting season, or, you know, in some areas maybe, you know, spring or end of fall into spring, okay? Like that tends to happen with us because we get warmer quicker. So an annual plant is going to be something that generally only survives one planting season, okay? It's not one that's going to come back every year. A perennial is one that's going to come back every year. So my tip is, although I love annuals and I love, you know, there's something that like it's a summer plant or it's a spring plant, you know, type of thing, or it's a winter plant. They're nice and it's fun to use them, but I wouldn't suggest using them all, you know, throughout your whole garden. For me, I might use some annuals in pots, and I will always try to stretch it as long as I can, you know, just to save money. But I am really trying to keep my garden perennial, because I don't want to have to change out all of my pots and ground covers or this or that every season. That's just, for me, it's kind of a waste of money. Now, maybe in an edge or like in the front of a bed, maybe I want to put something that just pops and that's an annual. Cool, that's great. You know in your mind those are not going to make it the next season, and you're going to have to pull them, and okay, you're good with it. But I think the smarter way to go is using more of a perennial, so that plant will come back. Maybe you have to do a little more work, cut them back, deadhead them, you know, cut them down. A lot of shrubs will need to get cut back down to the bottom so that it regrows in the next growing season. But you're working with the same plant, and I think that's, you know, a little bit more cost effective. And it gives you that idea that you know what your garden's going to look like. If you're continuously always changing everything out, you know what I mean? One, it's a lot of money, and two, you know, like you don't get a rhythm, and you don't really have a chance for it to really mature. And that's where I'm working right now in my garden, is getting the different zones of my garden established, you know. And one thing I'm working on right now is more ground covering, more foliage, that kind of thing, so that it's more of an established. Every year it will just get more and more, the shrubs will grow, it will be more established. And that to me is what makes a beautiful garden, is just that, you know, establish these, you know, heucheras and different things that just will keep coming back and are beautiful. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about was knowing your first frost dates. Depending on what zone you're in, and that when you go to find out your zone, you can also find out typically in those areas when your estimated first frost date will be. And that's important because any of the plants that you have in the ground, you want to cut back a certain amount of days before your first frost, or you want to cut back a certain amount of days after your first frost. So that kind of date is really important to know. Obviously there's times you don't want to plant right around that time because you're going to lose a plant. You don't want to do pruning because you're going to lose that plant, or or a portion of it. So knowing that information and just doing a little bit of research. I'm not trying to say you have to go in and learn everything and be an expert gardener, but there is a lot of free information out there that can just help you with whatever situation whether it's a balcony, in a condo or a townhouse, or a very small yard or a courtyard. It can give you that information so that you can better know when to plant, how to plant, know when to cut back, all your pruning, all the information. It's there, and it does help because as you cut back shrubs for one season and you do it the right way, the next growing season, it's going to be even bigger and better. You know what I mean? So knowing all that information can really help you create a beautiful space in your garden. And it's not anything that you have to know, anything difficult that you have to, like be a rocket scientist to figure it out. But, I just think some of that kind of stuff, if you're going to put the money into creating a beautiful space, you might as well learn as much as you can about it. So those are my tips. Those are my tips to understanding your zone, understanding your plant tags, understanding your frost dates, and just really being a little bit more mindful of what you're doing, because nobody wants to waste their money, or their time. There's nothing worse than going out and, back's hurting, everything's hurting, and you spend all this time and you planted all these plants and you did it, but you put them in the wrong spots. They're dying, they're not making it, and it's just frustrating. So if you just do a little bit of research and a little bit of extra effort in the beginning, just like the starter fertilizer, that extra step really will make a huge difference in how your plants do. I think you'll have a great success, and I hope I gave you some information and gave you some advice and gave you ways to think about how to better your garden, how to better garden in your zone and in your particular spaces. Keep in mind your trees, all that kind of stuff. It all makes a difference, because what time of day, do you have shade, do you not have shade? It all makes a difference. It really does. So I hope I was able to give you some information and help you. If you have any more questions or comments, please leave them down below, and I will be happy to get back to you and answer the best I can, or give you some more resources that you could maybe research a little bit more. I hope you have a great day. I hope if you like this video, you'll give it a thumbs up. It helps me so much with YouTube, and that you take a moment to subscribe and join this fun bunch. I hope you have a great day. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.